If you like what you're hearing, put your money where your media is by supporting ad-free independent podcasts like this one. Go to lauraflanders.com/membership, and thank you. Hi, I'm Laura Flanders, and this is The Laura Flanders Show, the TV and radio program that seeks to raise radical spirits by interviewing forward-thinking people with real models of shifting power from the worlds of arts, entrepreneurship, politics, and activism. What's next for U.S. healthcare? Some huge companies recently floated the idea of setting up their own single-payer system for their employees, with the companies as the single payer. We'll talk with Steffie Woolhandler of Physicians for a National Health Program and Ben Palmquist of the National Economic and Social Rights Initiative about the still mysterious Amazon J.P. Morgan Buffett notion. And then activists from Brazil, Haiti, and right here in the U.S. discuss what healthy communities need to thrive. An even bigger role for corporations, let's just say, is not on their list. And some special thanks from us to all our new supporters. It's all coming up here on the Laura Flanders Show, the place where the people who say it can't be done take a back seat to the people who are doing it. Welcome. U.S. healthcare is still in crisis. Over 30 million Americans remain uninsured, and even more of us are sickened by sky-high insurance costs. This January, Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, and Jamie Dimon announced that they were banding together to form a new healthcare entity. It would be premature to call this a plan. The men from Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, and J.P. Morgan Chase say that their whatever it is will be, quote, free from profit-making incentives and constraints. But remember, we're talking about three experts when it comes to making profits. While the Congress still seems hopelessly sunk in a partisan fight over the Affordable Care Act, and Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All bill is nowhere near becoming law, even though it's more popular than ever, might big business actually offer a way out? I am joined by two guests, Ben Palmquist of the National Economic and Social Rights Initiative, or NESRI, and Dr. Steffie Woolhandler from Physicians for a National Health Program. Welcome back, both of you. I'm so glad to have you. We've got a lot to unpack here. Let's just start with the top facts. Still in crisis, right?
Absolutely. We have very high healthcare costs. They're going up rapidly again. And we've got 30 million uninsured and another 20 million who have insurance but still can't afford care. So quite a crisis.
So still a crisis. The Republicans still out to kill the Affordable Care Act, or are they giving up?
They're still going after things, and it's sort of week by week now to see what they're going to do next.
And the Sanders bill, more support, but got a long way to go.
Well, it's got support by a third of all the Democrats in the Senate, including every major presidential contender among the senators. It's got support of half of the Democratic caucus in the House. More importantly, it's got tremendous support with the electorate, with polls showing 2/3 of Americans now endorsing the idea. So I think that's an idea with legs. We're not going to see anything happen until we have some different people in Congress and probably in the White House, but that could be very soon if we're lucky.
All right, so let's go back to the plan that we're here to talk about. It doesn't have legs, but it has some big talking heads. Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett. These are people who a lot of people think, well, maybe they've made all this money, they've made these big companies, maybe they can solve our healthcare crisis. Jamie Dimon, what do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot of interest because everybody recognizes how deep the problems in healthcare are. But I think it's really a lot of flash right now that doesn't have a lot of substance behind it. So these are not healthcare companies. These are, at the end of the day, these are employers, and they're profit-driven. And so what they're looking to do is cut their costs that they're spending on their employees' health insurance. But this does nothing to address the healthcare needs of the 50 million people who are being denied care. It does nothing to address the profiteering that's driving hospitals and drug companies and insurance companies to inflate healthcare costs. So it's really missing the point.
Now, Physicians for National Healthcare actually wrote a letter to these guys. What did you say?
Well, we said if you want to fix the healthcare system, go for a simple single-payer system, an expanded and improved Medicare for all. In fact, Warren Buffett has occasionally spoken out and said he thinks single-payer might be a good idea, though he hasn't said anything about it in this current effort. That was, of course, our point. I think we've seen business, including very big business, trying to involve themselves in controlling healthcare costs many times over the past few decades. They occasionally can get a little lower prices for their own corporations, but they've never had a durable impact on the healthcare crisis in this country.
Because the reason I felt like it was worth giving a second look to was these companies do have an interest in reducing costs, an interest that speaks to just how expensive it is to play in the American economy compared to comparable companies in Canada or most of Western Europe, most of the world, frankly. So how would you define their interest? And is it fair to say they might have reason enough to try to figure this out?
Okay. Well, let's just look at Jeff Bezos, who owns a lot of Amazon. It's in his interest to lower the healthcare costs for his workers. But frankly, it's in his business interest to see those costs go up for everybody else's workers. If he gets cheap healthcare and has lower labor costs, and other people have expensive healthcare and higher labor costs, that's a competitive advantage for Amazon. So yes, he has every interest in lowering his own the prices he has to pay, in lowering his own costs for employee benefits, but no interest whatsoever in lowering healthcare costs overall, because that would help his competitors just as much as it helps him. It's only if they're sitting and going, we need to make the entire economy work. Well, from that point of view, it would be good to have a more efficient healthcare system like the national health insurance systems of Canada or Western Europe. But that's not the way they're thinking, as far as we know. They're thinking, what saves me money? What gives me a competitive advantage? And a competitive advantage comes from Bezos getting his prices down and everybody else's prices and labor costs going up.
Because we have seen networks before. People might be familiar with Kaiser Permanente, providers like that who band together for a variety of reasons. What makes this different, or what would make it different if it's purely a corporate thing?
Well, we don't know yet, but it doesn't seem like they're actually going to have their own hospitals or their own delivery system. What they're really trying to do is establish market power so that they can bargain possibly with insurance companies, possibly directly with drug companies or others, to really just bargain down those costs. And they may introduce some technical things to cut out some of the middlemen involved. But fundamentally, neither of those models are able to offer a guarantee of healthcare to everybody. There's just private companies are simply unable to do that.
Did you want to add something?
Yeah, well, I mean, many decades ago, there were companies that went out and set up their own hospitals and clinics. And actually, Kaiser grew out of that. Kaiser Steel set up hospitals for their own dam workers. They were building dams out west. But that has not occurred in any recent decades. And recently, the role of business has just been to try to step in and use their buying power. And I think we're more likely to see that. I guess the insurance industry has reacted and thinks, well, maybe these guys will come in and demand that we lower our prices, cut some of our profits.
Yeah, J.P. Morgan had to reassure its investors, right?
Yeah, they got a little scared. But in terms of really transforming the healthcare system, we have not seen business do that since the early 20th century.
Now, there has been some question floated about whether this is actually about creating an app or a new type of technology that would enable these companies to make more profit off a healthcare app of some kind, a healthcare product. Because Amazon, we need to remember, actually makes more money on its cloud platform services than on selling books or anything else to all of us. Have you gotten any wind of anything about anything like that?
I certainly don't have any insider information. My assumption is they're first going to focus on lowering costs for their own employees, but out of that, they might develop some technologies that they try to market more broadly. But yeah.
This is the Laura Flanders Show. I'm Laura. My guests are Dr. Steffie Woolhandler of Physicians for a National Health Program and Ben Palmquist of the National Economic and Social Rights Initiative. Amazon, Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, and New York bank J.P. Morgan, who recently floated the idea of teaming up to create a single-payer healthcare system for their workers, are clearly looking to stick a pin in the ballooning costs of private insurance. But could this corporate-run system conceivably work for the rest of us? And can we believe that these corporations would take profit-making out of the picture? More to come.
We like crocodiles. We share one body with two mouths. But what is the other
That's the title track of artist Dawn Drake's album Cross Crocodiles. If you like our coverage of real-life alternatives and want to make sure we're around when you need us, please participate in our Each According to His or Her Ability crowdfunding initiative and see how you can get involved at 5 levels, from rebel to revolutionary. At lauraflanders.org, you can choose from a whole host of special gifts. When you become a sustaining member, monthly sustainers start at just $2 a month. Contribute and you'll be keeping the Laura Flanders Show free on Free Speech TV, Link TV, and CUNY TV, as well as at our website. Later on, you'll be hearing about what activists in Brazil and Haiti think healthy communities need to thrive. We believe that at least one thing we need is transparent, not-for-profit media. To you? Now back to our guests. Physician Dr. Steffie Woolhandler of Physicians for a National Health Program. That's a 22,000-member nonprofit research and education group that advocates for a single-payer system. And Ben Palmquist of the National Economic and Social Rights Initiative. The fact that our current system is too costly even for huge corporations like the ones we're talking about is interesting. But how about a real nonprofit alternative? A not-for-profit health system is something that Warren Buffett has actually said he'd favor. It's a win-win, not only for Buffett's employees, but for all of us, say my guests. So where do we stand? I mean, you can see why people are desperate for some kind of Deus Ex Machina, maybe Deus Ex Wall Street, to come and save us. Where do we stand when it comes to the kind of change that you actually, both of you, advocate, that's rights-based, that's not necessarily tied to an employer, that's forward-thinking, forward-looking to an economy where people are less permanently employed, more what they call kind of, precarious? Where are we in making the shift that's obviously going to be needed for a new economy and a new era?
Okay, well, the thing we've got going for us now that we haven't had for a while is a majority of the American people endorsing the idea of an expanded Medicare for All program. Now, that's what they'll tell a pollster. They'll say, I support it. But actually moving to Medicare for All means developing a political movement. So that's going to mean the electorate organizing. It's going to mean physicians organizing, as we do in Physicians for a National Health Program, nurses organizing, as they
like
do
the National
through their
Nurses United that we're seeing here.
Right, through their unions. It's going to require people who really believe in universal health care and see the need for the single-payer program to go from just expressing opinions to actually demanding it and being a political movement.
So why aren't we there? Haven't we been saying the same thing for decades, Ben?
Yes, these efforts are not new, but we are in this extraordinary moment where energy is bubbling up all over. And so people are pushing for universal, publicly financed single payer in Washington, but also in a bunch of states building power. And I think what really needs to happen is all of us now at this point to really stand up to hold elected officials accountable, to elect the people we need, and also to hold private actors accountable. So we need to be holding hospital companies and drug companies and insurance companies accountable. And when they're not delivering care to people, we need to be demonstrating, getting out there and writing letters to the editor and speaking up.
So where are you most excited? There were some interesting results in the elections of last November that pushed this issue forward. There are some models out there in different parts of the states. Who wants to take a whack at that? Ben, and then Steffie, maybe? Steffie and then Ben. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to need a national movement. The state movements are great, and for people who are in states where they have a lot of momentum for single payer, certainly support those movements. But we are going to need a national movement, and I think we're starting to see it. We've got some people who are real leaders at this point, recognized leaders, like the way Sanders has become recognized, the way Keith Ellison has become recognized, who are out there saying, now's the time to push these single-payer ideas. I think part of what happened is people were kind of taking a wait-and-see attitude toward Obamacare, and many supporters of single-payer said, yeah, I still support single-payer, but maybe this Obamacare thing will get us to universal health care. But to be honest, Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act have played themselves out. We've covered half of the uninsured, but we've left half uninsured, and people are still pretty unhappy about their private coverage, even people with coverage. So we're finding it among physicians, which is our main constituency, that now they're saying, okay, we tried the Affordable Care Act. It got us part of the way, but it's clearly not going to get us to universal health care. And, physicians every day in our own practices, we're treating people who didn't come in early, who didn't get the treatment they needed to stay healthy because they couldn't afford health care. We see people who have disabling conditions that could have been prevented by early attention to diabetes or hypertension. We see people who come in and we need to get them specialty care, and we just can't get it because they don't have the right insurance. So as we try to take care of patients, we're finding we really can't do it, and we found that the Affordable Care Act, whatever its strengths, did not get us where we need to be in terms of universal health care.
The state plans for all of their problems, as you just mentioned. They may not be the whole distance we want to travel, but they would give people a taste of a system that's different. Are there any out there that have you excited, Ben?
Yeah, there's a lot of state efforts going on, and they're not the end game, but it is an important way to build towards where we need to get. And so
like
in
which?
both the Healthy California and the Campaign for New York Health have both passed a bill for universal health care through one of their state houses. So those campaigns are going strong. People in Maine just went around their reactionary governor and passed a Medicaid expansion in November. And then there's all sorts of local efforts to protect community clinics and hospitals, and people are organizing all sorts of things in their communities across the country. And so what's really important, I think, is that keeping our eyes on the long-term goal of really guaranteeing healthcare as a human right and a public good for everyone, and doing that equitably, and then also building the power we need thoughtfully to get there.
So in these state plans and looking to the national plan, you have co-authored a piece in the current issue of Jacobin, which is totally dedicated to the question of healthcare, sort of raising concerns or anticipating problems if the Medicare for All proposal isn't implemented in a certain way. The biggest one being, you suggest you really can't have two parallel systems, private and public. Is there any way around that?
No, I think we need a single system with everybody in, nobody out. That's what they have in Canada. If you're in the system, and the richest person, the poorest person in the country have the same type of health insurance. And that way you get a more equitable system, because illness doesn't care how much money you make. Illness can strike if you're rich or you're poor. So you have an equitable system that covers everyone, but you also have a much more efficient system because you can pay your hospitals with global budgets. Say, here's your lump sum budget. You get 1/12 of it every month. You don't have to send bills anymore. You can't do that if you have a separate public and private systems. So having a single public system is important for equity. It's important for cost control.
So, Jamie, Jeff, Warren, come on over. What do you think of the chances?
I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess me neither. What can other people do if they want to try to get involved?
Okay. Well, people should look at the website of Physicians for a National Health Program. Full membership's open to any health professional. There's also lots of links to the community groups and coalitions that we work with. Certainly National Nurses United has websites that help people plug in, Progressive Democrats of America, and people should find local groups that are working on this issue and show up.
Don't wait for Healthcare Prime. Ben Palmquist, Steffie Woolhandler, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
You can find out more information at our website. Access to affordable health care is just one of the things we all need. What else? Kamal Franklin is an organizer with Community Movement Builders in Atlanta. He says people need homes, not just houses, and a say in how their neighborhoods develop. Franklin was recently in New York City, where he talked about a housing buyback project and a people's assembly process he's involved in Georgia. Then, Mamara Douche Prosper and Maria Luisa Mendoza have been studying resistance to land grabs in Haiti and Brazil and finding that just and equitable food systems are critical. Is there anything we can learn from them here? Take a listen.
A lot of times, particularly in cities that have been traditionally or longer-term black cities, they've been sort of South Africa post-apartheid. You've had black political elites who've combined with white economic elites to decide how the city will run. And usually how the city will run is not necessarily in the benefit of, let's say, the working class of that particular city. It's usually for the benefit of the elite white economic community and the elite black economic community, with the small amount that there is. And that may sort of trickle down into some jobs, but doesn't necessarily have to be that. I want to make a turn or a shift to trying to build grassroots institutions and figure out how do we build workable cooperatives that have some sustainable economic ideas behind them. So we're starting a farmer's market, we have a community garden, we're doing micro business with youth. How do we do these things that bring resources to these communities and do them in a way that says this is not about capitalist structure, but about cooperative structures, new ways of thinking about how to do and organize economic needs, which hopefully leads to additional political education around the difference between if we do things collectively and how we operate in a capitalist nature state of individualism. The Community Movement Builders is an organization that's base building in a working class community in Atlanta called Pittsburgh that owns property one property uses as a community house, and another piece of property is going to build another house to use as organizing housing for people to do work in that community. So the buyback program is a way of trying to get not only the community, but institutions like churches within the community, people outside who are concerned about these issues to raise money so that we can buy property in these neighborhoods and use some of that property for housing, for community work, and for organizing that we think can help contribute to the sustainability of the community. We need a way to make sure that the property and the land in the area is sustained over many years. And the only way to really do that is to start building land trusts. The structures don't mean anything unless we have economic enterprises that are viable, that people will want to participate in terms of commerce and spending. We just did a people's assembly in the Pittsburgh area, where we talked to residents and we sort of took what were their main concerns, what were the things that they really wanted to have done to make their community more livable. And one of the things that always comes up in poor or working class communities is around safety and crime. Most people don't believe that the police are going to solve these issues, but they feel like they don't have alternative infrastructure, alternative institutions that can serve the purpose of providing safety, but stopping police brutality, but not necessarily taking people away from out of the community as dangerous because they smoke weed or because they wear their pants low or something along those lines. So part of what we do is that we create security structures that can operate as cooperatives, that can operate as community patrols, and they include helping to provide safety for people in the community, but also being on call to watch the police as they patrol our community so that we can make sure that the rights of folks are not violated. I think we've moved away from sort of a material basis of like food, clothing, shelter, and moved a lot towards just a simple rights basis. Again, those things are important, but I think for everyday working class people, we have to get back to what are the everyday challenges that these folks are facing.
Memora Duge Prosper and Maria Luisa Mendoza.
When we talk about grounded struggle, is to think about what's happening on the ground in terms of people's reactions, but also how it relates to land.
Land is central to economic issues, social, political issues in Brazil. Brazil is probably the most unequal country in the world in terms of land concentration, and that, of course, is the main cause of inequality in the country. In Europe, in the United States, there is growing concern about ecological agriculture, organic food, local agriculture, but if you look to the global south, mainly the system is expanding monocropping for agribusiness, and that's one of the main causes of climate change.
I don't want to privilege climate change as what connects these movements, but rather the affront of neoliberal policies in terms of how that has guided the supposed post-colonial nation state, right, in decision-making in terms of like who owns land and what is land purposed for.
Now, a major actor is the so-called financial industry, especially pension funds. From the U.S., one of them is TAA-CREF, that is speculating with land. So after the financial crisis here and the crisis in the housing market in the U.S. in 2008, financial capital migrated to the global south to buy farmland and to promote the extensive monocropping of agricultural commodities, and that is one of the main reasons for displacement of rural communities.
80% of the rice Haitian people consume actually comes from the United States. 50% of the food that we consume in Haiti comes from elsewhere, mainly the United States. Haiti is not producing enough for domestic consumption as far as food is related.
The U.S. historically has been using food as a weapon.
the UN, along with NGOs, is instrumental in deepening the food insecurity that Haitians are facing, right? So even if we think about the earthquake, that was something that was in everybody's mind, right? That the focus was not on let's develop national production, but rather let's import more foods to feed all the hungry Haitians who are in the camps, right? And so the logic is still this logic of food dependency rather than national production because of the companies that are being privileged in this model, of course.
I think transforming the food system is key to protect the land. Is key if we want to deal with the issue of climate change. We need to ask a simple question: who causes climate change, right? What are the main corporations responsible for climate change? And that would be the oil industry, agribusiness that is based on chemical inputs that are based on fossil fuels. And that's why the social movements in Brazil and internationally with Via Campesina, they also criticize the false solutions for climate change. For example, expanding monocropping of sugarcane for ethanol or biodiesel with soy. Protecting the land, protecting local agriculture has impacts beyond just for small farmers. We have very strong rural movements, like the landless workers movement in Brazil. It's very sophisticated in terms of building international solidarity, including international solidarity with Haiti against the occupation.
Most folks, I think, assume that in Haiti there is a humanitarian presence. First of all, humanitarianism is a militarized process. So what happens when you have military troops in Haiti? Violence, right? And also a target of the Haitian ghettos, right? So places that have a whole bunch of folks who are typically construed as unruly, as not abiding by the law, right? So there's a way that they're understood as a criminal just because they're poor, right? And I think that there are ways that what's happening in Haiti very much links to some of the upheaval that we're seeing here around the issues of race.
The U.S. is a main player, right, in this. It's very important to create solidarity in the U.S. There is pressure here about U.S. policies around the world.
That was Maria Luisa Mendoza, Mamara Douche Prosper, and Kamal Franklin. Earlier in the show, you heard Steffie Woolhandler of Physicians for a National Health Program and Ben Palmquist of the National Economic and Social Rights Initiative. If you want to hear this podcast air on a radio station near you, let us know. We can help make that happen. The Laura Flanders Show is available from us or through the Pacifica Radio Network. Prefer to watch, see what we all look like? You can watch on Link TV, Free Speech TV, and on many community stations around the country. The Laura Flanders Show is a co-production of the City University of New York television station. We recently, which is to say this week, launched a Patreon site. Now that enables us to offer monthly subscribers, like we hope you will be, exclusive access to extra interviews, podcasts, and all sorts of more good stuff. This week, we are making our first big push for subscribers, and we are thanking the half dozen or so of you who got the word early and stepped up to help. Sign up, join them for as little as $2 a month. I've done it. It is easy, painless. It's also easy to tell your friends about it, which I hope you will. It's a little trickier for me to do it. I sound so ridiculous. But hey, I'm doing it all for the cause. Will you do your bit? In the meantime, we're always releasing exciting news bites and snazzy memes on social media. Just search for The Laura Flanders Show on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it. And of course, you can write to me. Tell me what you think. That's Laura, Laura, at lauraflanders.org. Stay kind, stay curious. I'm Laura Flanders. Thanks.